Ms. Shakuntala Gamlin, Secretary, Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, Government of India, and Mr. Pradhan, Sandip Pradhan, DG SAI. I'm happy to extend a very warm welcome.
Both of you for joining us today. Despite your very, very busy schedule, I know you're just ahead of the Parliament session that's coming up in a day or two. So very, very thankful to you. And let me tell you, for many of us here, for all of us here, it's a cherished dream to have you both on the panel and to be listening to you and, taking. Ma'am, without further ado, let me just introduce both of you to the very avid listeners of today's event. Ms. Shakuntala Doley Gamlin is a 1984 batch cadre of the unit Agmut cadre of the IAS. She has served earlier as Chief Secretary of Delhi and thereafter Chief Secretary of Arunachal Pradesh. She is daughter of the former Assam MP, Mr. Lalit Doley, and wife of the former Arunachal Pradesh Chief Minister, Mr. Gamlin. In her career spanning over 30 years, she has worked in several positions in various departments in the tourism, health and family welfare, power, and she has in the Ministry of Renewable Energy, in the Delhi Municipal Corporation, and as Chief Secretary Arunachal Pradesh, she has led several innovative schemes besides focusing on infrastructure, telecom, digitization, agriculture, and horticulture. We are very happy to welcome you, Ms. Shakuntala. Uh, we also have another very distinguished officer, Mr. Sandip Pradhan, who's now DG SAI. He's from the Indian Revenue Service and belongs to the 1990 batch. He's also worked as Deputy Director General Sports Authority of India and handled the KELO project and other schemes of SAI. He was member or convener of the Olympic Task Force formed by the Honorable Prime Minister of India for recommendation on improvement of India's performance in Olympics. He worked as Director General Sports Authority of Gujarat for 4 years. He's worked for recruitment of sports persons in government departments. It's a very big thing that many of us would like to know about. He was also part of the BCCI Corporate Cricket Committee. Ma'am and Mr. Pradhan, the Microsoft Teams is being used as a platform, and being very accommodative, we have been able to accommodate as many people as possible here. In fact, we have tried to reach out to the end users, that is those who are living in the rural areas, by sending out messages on WhatsApp. If the network is good, they will be able to listen to your program. And there's a parallel Facebook live stream going on, and other social media platforms are also open for people to view and to listen. I'm also happy to inform you that we have our friends, our partners, our sponsors, our well-wishers in and around out of India have also been informed about this program well in advance. We hope they are also tuning in. And in this group, we have the entire WBI fraternity, which consists of our players mainly, then the coaches, the classifiers, the referees, the sports administrators. So we're very happy once again to welcome you. And I request Ms. Madhavi, former president of the WBFI, to share her thoughts. I've just entered into the portals of this office. Today we are 1 month old. And Madhavi has been heading the organization for almost 6 years, since 2014. Madhavi, may I request you to kindly share your thoughts?
Respected Shakuntala Madam, Secretary to Government, Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, and Sandip Pradhan ji, Director General Sports Authority of India, Bhamati Madam, Lee, my dear WBFI members and players. Really today is an amazing day for all of us for having such senior officials from the very relevant departments for WBFI. We all should thank Bhamati Madam for taking this initiative to invite such senior officials, and Shakuntala Madam and Pradhanji kindly accept our heartfelt thanks for accepting this invitation. I would like to share a few good things about WBFI. We founded this federation in 2014, and with the support of government and corporates, we are able to reach out to 23 states, and we are able to introduce this sport to more than 650 persons with disabilities across India. Because this is a new sport, earlier it was used in some rehabilitation centers only. So to promote this sport, with the support of our partner International Committee of Red Cross and International Wheelchair Basketball Federation, we arranged courses for coaches, referees, and classifiers. Apart from these courses, many trainers from abroad, and they came voluntarily and trained our players and also our coaches, referees, classifiers. They got benefited a lot from their training, and we arranged some training camps for them, and we could take them for some international tournaments also, where by observing and by playing with the international players, our staff and our players learnt a lot. And apart from this, one of our players, he went to US, University of Alabama, under athletics scholarship, 5 years athletics scholarship. He's studying there, and he's also playing for university. There are so many benefits in the lives of our players after starting playing this sport, both in physical and mental health, and also in getting recognition from their local societies. And US government recognized our efforts, and they invited for a sports visitor program 15-member team, coaches and administrators of WBFI. We learned many things from the best practices they are following there. And we started one unique program, mentorship program. Leaders from diverse fields, they came forward and mentored our players. Even Bhamati madam also, at that time, she came forward and mentored one of our players. It helped players a lot. And during this pandemic time, with the support of our partner International Committee of Red Cross and some other well-wishers, we are able to support our players to some extent to meet their essential needs. But as you know that to promote this type of sport, there are so many challenges considering the accessibility environment in our country. Still we are facing so many challenges with regard to accommodation, accessible accommodation, in getting accessible accommodation and transport, and many other challenges, and the requirement of sports equipment like sports wheelchairs. So many challenges are there. We definitely need more and more support from your respective departments, so that our players will get benefited a lot. Thank you.
May I now request Ms. Shakuntala to start her presentation?
So I would first like to thank Bhamati madam, who has actually extended this invitation to me to participate in this webinar with the para athletes and your wheelchair basketball federation, and the participants, I'm told, are not only from the country but globally. And also I would like to congratulate Bhamati madam. After superannuation, one would think of maybe doing a little sort of work on a scholastic type of work, but she has actually assumed the responsibility as the president of the wheelchair basketball. It speaks volumes about her ability and her physical and mental strength. And I think the kind of agility she has shown, it's really exemplary, and there's a lot to learn from her. She incidentally, she was also in charge of the Union Territory cell at the Ministry of Home Affairs, and I remember that most of us used to be very scared of approaching her for a transfer because she was a very strict sort of administrator. But notwithstanding that, I think it's a lot of empathy and passion, which must have brought you to this sector. I would like to take this opportunity to just introduce, to the participants today about the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, which is a legislation which is very sort of noble, forward-looking, and I think one of the boldest sort of, legislation which has been enacted by Parliament after India ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2007, and prior to which we had a welfare-based act which was called the Persons with Disabilities Act, where even the number of disabilities were only 7. And I think a conventional understanding of disabilities was mainly physical impairment, like a locomotor disability or a visual impairment or a hearing impairment. But today, when we look at the category of disabilities, we have 21 disabilities. And I think world over, people have realized that disabilities have got tremendous human resource potential, and not only in the field of sports, but also in the field of academics. So you also in the field of art and also in the field of culture. And today we have 20 visually sort of visual impaired officers in the IAS itself, which means which says a lot about empowerment, and which says a lot about how India has also worked towards including the disabled persons. So when we have brought in a legislation wherein, even when you talk about social, economic, political empowerment, we have not only broadened the category of disabilities, we have also looked at inclusion in the sense of, we have gone to the levels of getting the states on board, because the act is, universally applicable, and the rules, which are model rules, have been now notified by almost all the states and union territories. So therefore, when we talk of a job reservation, or when we talk of higher education where there is 5% reservation, where we talk of scholarship schemes, I think we have come a long way. And we are also now talking of universal accessibility and inclusion in infrastructure. Even the new education policy talks about accessible classrooms, inclusive sort of, primary and preparatory school sort of learning sort of curriculum. And as RCI chairperson, since I'm also the Rehabilitation Council of India chairperson, and I'm also the Chief Commissioner Disabilities, I find that the Act has provided all the checks and balances, and should there be any violations, should there be any sort of, where a sense of, dignity is not ensured for a person with disabilities, there are sort of, ways of actually approaching the commissioners of disabilities, the chief commissioner of disabilities. As a chief commissioner of disabilities, I have passed several orders about railways accessibility, about buildings accessibilities, about, sports and stadiums that need to be made accessible. So much so that even when we have now discussed in the Committee of Secretaries, we have actually embedded the accessibility components in the Expenditure Finance Committee sort of guidelines for preparing project proposals, be that as it may, whether it's a stadium or whether it's a university or whether it is a hospital. Accessibility components must be inherent, otherwise such proposals don't get passed. But even when you look at the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, sections 40 to 46 have clearly given legal obligations, timelines, and also stated that when you provide a reasonable accommodation, what are the features? So we have even broken down those features into 10 components where a building has to be accessible from the point of view of earmarked car parking or earmarked parking facility, accessible sort of approach, accessible sort of ramps, which should be 1:12 with double height railings. We also have tactile floorings for the visually impaired. We have staircases which needs color codes and double height railings. We need lifts with auditory signals and braille buttons. We also need to have accessible unisex toilets that have horizontal and vertical bars and low height commodes. We also need accessible low height receptions. We need signages, we need sign language. So I think if you look at the kind of disabilities, we have come a long way in terms of providing accessibility in communication and inclusive education, where we're looking at assistive tools and devices, inclusive curriculum, and also coming out of the archaic way of the prejudice and the stigma that we attach to such persons, that their ability is lesser than the other children. I think we have come a long way, and we are now in the process of making technology accessible, infrastructure accessible. And when you go through the Act, Section 30 clearly says that, you have to see that not only in the field of education, but also in the field of culture, sports, creative arts, we performing art, and there even political sort of inclusion, where polling stations need to be made accessible, the stage needs to be made accessible, the school, the university, the hospitals, all that need to be made accessible. So we needed to make standards in the sense of what kind of technology, whether it's a smartphone, whether it is information communication technology, where the optical character readers, the large font sizes, the text to speech, and the sign language. We had to actually set up the Indian Sign Language Training Research Center, where we have developed a dictionary of about 10,000 words, which is now being adapted as curriculum for the NCERT curriculum from class 1 to 12 for the hearing impaired, where the modes of expression would be in sign language. We had a tableau on display yesterday at the Republic Day parade, where the sign language was depicted, and where you have seen that most of the TV channels have a sign language news bulletin, and some of their items are actually conveyed in the mode of sign language. And there is an Indian sign language which is uniform to all, and that is now being launched in the diploma certificate, and we are even looking at graduate and postgraduate levels of sign language courses. But when we look at disabilities, we see that intellectual and mental illness also are part of the disabilities, which earlier used to be termed as mentally retarded. So such terminologies as mental retardation are actually not to be used. They are derogatory in a manner, and we have to sort of ensure that every disabled person has the ability, given the encouragement, given the ability to develop his cognitive and motor skills, he could perform even better than most of us. So most of our inventions, innovations, and most of the discoveries, you would find that in history have come from such people, because they have a focused brain. And even when I have visited my blind school in Dehradun, I find people who have used tactile geometry boxes, tactile surfaces and shapes and sizes, and who have memorized or learned numbers through their mind and through the feel of surfaces. Their performance in numeracy and literacy have been much better than our children, who are so distracted by WhatsApp and by internet and by what they see. So I think in terms of facilitating their talent, we need to make the environment, the ecosystem, the schools, colleges, the hospitals, the stadiums very accessible. And also we have to see if there are any adaptive games which are dedicated to such persons. I must place on record my compliments to the para athletes who have won gold medals and bronze medals and silver medals, and the blind cricket team has won the T Series. So incidentally, we have been able to sort of honor them. We have also been able to sort of ensure that they are recognized, and in the sense of their inclusive participation, as we are mandated under the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, we are going to have 5 stadiums dedicated only to disabled sports para-athletes. Of course, the infrastructure could be used by non-disabled persons, but I myself went to Australia to see what could be the components in terms of the architectural philosophy, in terms of the sporting needs, in terms of the adaptive games. What are the kind of features we need to build into the design concept? And we found that when we designed the stadium in Gwalior for the disabled persons, we have got everything from aquatic to indoor to even sort of outdoor games. So we have designed there's even the swimming pool with ramps, and in a manner where there are sort of cameras to watch their limb movements, and adaptive games like goal ball, boccia, and all other games which are relevant and which they could perform and excel. We are hoping to complete our first project in 2022 and host the first sort of international event, para-athletic international event in 23. And we are almost spending about 170 crore for the stadium. And we are also planning to build such other stadiums in 4 other places, one in Shillong, one in Zirakpur, Punjab, and one in Vishakhapatnam, and one also, I think we're still scouting around for a place. So Gwalior project has been already awarded. It's likely to be commissioned, as I've just mentioned, in 23. So from wheelchair basketball to goal ball to boccia to sort of, track sort of events, everything has been, including hostels, coaching, and training sort of facilities. So I think we need to recognize that their ability to excel in sports internationally, and must see that such international training centers and event sort of organizing centers need to be created. So this, of course, would also need to be recognized in terms of whether they can be recognized at par with the other athletics, other sports of able-bodied persons, and whether, as Madhavi had just mentioned, scholarships. We have scholarships for pre-matric, post-matric. We also have scholarships for top class. We have scholarships for fellowship overseas. But for sports studies, whether we can fit in, scholarships, that also needs to be worked out. And we are happy to work with the sports ministry to the extent possible to make things more sort of accessible, more sort of easy for pursuing their sort of higher education and sort of their specialization in sports, and in terms of bringing them at par with the other sports persons, in terms of recognition, in terms of job needs, in terms of their training. I think we are only too willing to work with the other ministries, even in case of accessible sort of architecture and accessible sort of components within buildings, ICTs, and public transport systems. We are mandated that we must have low-floored buses, we must have wide doors, we must have hydraulic floors, we must have earmarked sort of sitting places for them. But we know that the conditions in rural buses, where the buses are of 900 mm height with narrow doors, and a earmarking of seats would not really make the bus accessible unless we have foldable ramps. So we're trying to look at local solutions, but we are trying to see that whatever has been mandated in terms of accessibility of public transport systems, accessibility of public facilities, inclusive education should be made in a manner which does not delay the process, and where for newer projects, where we need to sort of build in those components, and in existing infrastructure we need to retrofit all the accessible components. We have even got a dictionary ready for launch for accessible, because often I find that even the railway engineers need to be sort of, taught about accessibility, though they might have got tremendous knowledge about engineering sort of principles. But when we talk of ramps, when we talk of accessible toilets, initially when I joined here, I found that I was when I used to talk about accessibility, people used to look at me as if, it's some Greek and Latin, but I used to, be very tenaciously calling the meetings and used to tell them that, the harmonized guidelines are there. Let's build it into the policy. Let's have discussions, and let's see whether we can build standards. So today we have reached a point where every ministry has been mandated to build standards, but so far as standards for public transport systems, for harmonized building guidelines are concerned, and also the ICT, where EPUB reader and the optical character readers and the text to speech, where the Government of India website guidelines needed to be adopted. We have already got some more than 900 websites accessible. But perhaps when we talk of accessibility, even when we sort of grow old, when we are talking of a inter-platform transfer in the railway station, it's challenging. And therefore, when you're talking of accessibility, you have to build subways, you have to build lifts, you have to sort of in the interregnum till such long-term features come in, and which cannot be retrofitted and which needs to be sort of redone in a manner where accessibility and visibility and such facilities need not be sort of worked in terms of building standards, where standards have become a culture and ethos of the universal accessibility principles. I think we would reach a stage where such accessibility features would come in. Now, to come to the point of sports accessibility, I think our Gwalior sports stadia would be a model of its kind, where we have worked very hard to see that, how to make a sports stadia accessible. Because when I assumed the charge here, I remember there was a huge write-up in some national daily in the print media about, sports persons languishing in the ground floor. They were not able to access, the toilets, which were on the first or the second floor. And then they were all sort of lying on the floor. There were no sort of facilities. So the first thing which struck me in my mind is that if I have to build a stadia, what should I do? So we've got good hostel rooms that are accessible. We've got the whole stadia in terms of its composite sort of facility that would be provided for outdoor, indoor and aquatic games and a training center. I think we have tried to build in accessibility so that the wheelchair accessibility is there. Wheelchair basketball players could enjoy, the facility, and even swimming pools are accessible. The track is accessible, the open door games are accessible, and living, library, teaching, everything would be made accessible. So I would also like to qualify by saying that when we talk about accessibility, we need not be prejudiced that this accessibility has been built for the disabled and it's very capital intensive. I think in a country like ours, where when we are talking of coaches, railway coaches being accessible, platforms being accessible, I think if we just compare ourselves with some of the countries, developed countries, we should to provide ramps and to provide, the coaches, railway coaches to be made accessible, to provide the information which is accessible, to provide the inter-platform transfer which is accessible, shouldn't, I think, be cost intensive. We have also done a study with the Delhi School of Planning and Architecture, where local solutions like, a hydraulic lift can be provided, or local solutions like a local foldable ramp could be provided. But we needed to standardize it, and we needed to see that adequacy of the facility, accessibility of the facility, and, earmarking those facilities for them. If we did not do that, often such children got left behind because there was always some discrimination, and their cognitive and their motor skills ability was always in doubt. The reason why we have started the early intervention care, where 0 to 6 years children with such delayed developmental abilities could actually be trained to start speaking again, start walking again. and which is a rehabilitative care where, an occupational therapist or a physiotherapist or a psychologist and a speech therapist and an audiologist could actually help such children walk and sort of talk and actually be part of numeracy literacy instead of being being sort of admitted in special schools where they would do a repetitive thing like, candle making or pottery making. And when the parents pass away, and they would really not value their inheritance or would not know their legal capacity because their cognitive and their motor skills or their reasoning ability was not developed. So I think it's a very crucial issue, and it is not purely a part of a medical protocol. So while identification would be a part of medical protocol, I thought we need to bring in complementarities between the medical protocol and the social and rehabilitation protocol. We didn't have the human resource. So in our national institutes, which are basically teaching institutes, we have now started, which are tertiary level care centers, to sort of see. There were standalone vertical institutes like, visually impaired, speech and locomotor, multiple intellectual, but we are trying to see whether a common vertical program of early intervention, common to all, particularly when there are so many autistic children, and every sort of 50 children born, you will find somebody has learning disabilities, somebody has autism, somebody has cerebral palsy. So with the growing disease burden, I have thought that we must have an early intervention care, which could then catch up with the districts later, and states could also. And we are trying to simplify those protocols to make them home-based so that parents know that the critical golden period of 0 to 6 years is very important for their, motor skills and cognitive skills development, and also learning preparatory sort of school-going skills of sort of how to sort of brush their teeth, how to how to their toilet behavior, how to learn numeracy literacy, if they have to use a splint, if they have to sit on a special chair, what kind of special chairs, can we standardize them? Even when I talk to parents who have children with learning disabilities, be that as it may, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, I find that every parent has a different experience to share. So within the sort of, different experiences, can we have a universal sort of design curriculum which can stimulate their cognitive skills, their playing skills, their learning skills? The external stimuli could help sort of, develop an arrested brain growth, which is the case with regard to cerebral palsy. And even for mental illness, we find that, early intervention for depression, for sort of anxiety, all these things could help prevent the onset of chronic manic depression or the onset of serious mental illness. Well, how to bring about congruity between, the psychiatric part of the treatment, which is for bipolar schizophrenia, or to look at, primary levels of interventions for depression, for anxiety, for counseling part, which can prevent the onset of the seriousness of the disease and the chronic stage of the disease. We've also tried to see that accessible mental health helplines in different languages could help women, sort of youth, without disclosing their identity and without getting stigmatized, whether they can speak about their problem. And most of them have, anxiety disorder, and suicide is very preventable. So, but suicide is also very, there's something called a copycat suicide, where if one commits suicide, the other person also. So all these things have been factored in a manner where we are trying to build the institutes where such research, such courses could be launched. We are also looking at setting up a university where we need to build curriculum for postgraduate graduation and for research, so that we have more teaching faculty, we have more field level personnel who can work with the health workers and with community to build sort of awareness, bring about behavioral and attitudinal change. And we are also trying to see that, education in its new education policy must not leave behind such children. And I must say that the present Secretary Education has been very proactive. She has taken all our suggestions. We have now an active committee to look at primary and elementary and school level education, and I am also trying to see that whether such parental organizations, such NGOs, such civil society organizations could help give us inputs where such curriculum development should not be a difficulty. I think a little probing of the parental experience, the school experience, the child experience. I think we have experts, teachers, rehabilitation professionals who could build the curriculums without much ado. So I think it's a great pleasure to be here, where civil servants, scholars, experts, sports persons, all of us together need to build a partnership to make this collective effort to cut back on the time that we lost in proper understanding of how to make inclusion and universal inclusion a possibility. And I must say that perhaps in the world, we are the only country which has enacted a legislation and a domestic law which is a rights-based approach. And I think it couldn't have been better than this. So we have a lot of miles to cover, but I think we have started, and significantly so. We have now a department, we have many partners, we have many institutions. We are going to build more institutions, more human resource capacity. So I can see that the future is very bright for all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for spelling out the whole spectrum of activities in such a very short time. You've given us a good picture of what was happening in the ministry. I'm very happy that you're providing your focus is on providing the enabling environment and, giving protocols and guidelines and, standards which are well beyond minimum standards that we are looking at. We're looking more at excellence than minimum standards of addressing these issues. And I think this is a very, very heartening to hear about this. We're very happy that the indoor Gwalior Stadium is coming up. I think it's a big dream again for many of the players in this fraternity, and it will be a dedicated one. Is probably the best part about the Gwalior institution. And we hope that we will have more of these in due course, so that it's accessible to all. And this infrastructure would be available for us. It will give a great boost to our players. And the best part also is that you have been able to mainstream all the features of your department, your policies and programs and your activities into other ministries. And one such would be, the Sports Authority of India, the Sports Ministry. And therefore, we like Mr. Pradhan to kindly present your perspective on these issues. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Respected Shakuntala Madam, Secretary to Government of India, respected Bhamati Madam, and all the participants. At the outset, I am thankful to Bhamati Madam for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to express or give the detailed details of what the ministry has been doing for para athletes. Many of the viewers or the participants may not be aware, and I'm extremely thankful to Shakuntala Madam. She has given a very good insight of the spectrum of the activities that have been conducted. And Madam, I must add to what you said, that Social Justice, Social Welfare Department has also funded the Sports Ministry and SAI to come up with a National Center of Excellence for para athletes in Gandhinagar. So that the construction is also underway. So that you have to add to your the list of the stadiums that is being built, ma'am. Unfortunately, we are a little slower than what was expected, but now I think we have streamlined our procedures and systems, and we'll be very fast. So just to spell out on what has been done or what is being done for disabled people. First of all, Government of India in the Sports Ministry do not distinguish between the para athletes and the general athletes. So as far as the cash awards and the incentives are concerned, they are at par. So that is the first thing that the policy decision has been taken for para athletes.
Very good.
Secondly, PCI, we are funding under a scheme called ACTC, that is Annual Calendar for Training and Competition. So under that, we fund the federation for carrying out a lot of activities, and that funding is approximately 3 crore rupees per year. And the federation conducts the camp, national camps. They prepare the athletes for Olympics. They conduct the national championships also. And it does have the provision to conduct the international competitions in India. That is also funded under the ACTC. Now, as you are aware, Government of India has started a Khelo India program. So under Khelo India, there is one special vertical for para athletes. So under that vertical, also there is a provision to support a lot of activity, all spectrum of activities of para sports under Khelo India. And it is right from coach education program, classification to training to competitions. So all the verticals are of the sports development are also covered under Khelo India. When it comes to, we have one more scheme called Target Olympic Podium, where we support the athlete directly. We fund the athlete for preparation for the Olympics. And we have a separate wing to support the para athletes. And I must say that now the cycle going on is 2016 to 2020 Olympics. And as Madam said, we had an excellent 2060 Olympics from para. And I must say that in 2020, the para athletes are expected to win more than 10 medals. So we are looking at very good medal tally for 2020. And in last 4 years, we have spent more than 10 crore rupees by direct funding to the athletes who are preparing for the Olympics, Paralympics I'm talking about. So the funding is for equipments, funding is for foreign training, funding is to get the coach in India, funding is for the sports science support, funding is for consumables. So for all activities, and apart from that, 50,000 rupees per month out of pocket expense for the scholarship or a stipend is given to the athletes who are selected under the scheme that is called TOPS, that is Target Olympic Podiums. Now, I must say, some of the players, for example, there is a player called Sharat Kumar, para-athlete, who has been so far given a funding of rupees 42,91,000 rupees. So to one player, we have funded approximately 43 lakh rupees. There is a Suhas, who is a para-badminton player, and I think many of you may be aware, he's an IAS officer. He's a collector right now in Noida, and is a brilliant badminton player himself. And he has been funded 33,62,000 so far for dream to achieve the medal in Olympics. There is one athlete called Pramod Bhagat. He is again a para badminton player, and we have funded him 32 lakh rupees so far. So what I'm trying to say, as far as the para athletes or the para game is concerned, Government of India is spending good amount of money, especially to achieve the dream of Olympics. Now, apart from this, when we come to SAI, let me tell you, we have 23 National Center of Excellence. And in all National Center of Excellence, we have certified to the ministry they are para-friendly as far as the hostels as well as the sports facilities are concerned. And if you look at our different centers like Sonepat, the para-archers are right now training in our Sonepat center. In Gandhinagar, as I mentioned, we are building a huge center of excellence for para-athletes. So right now the hostel facilities is under construction, but at present also many athletes are staying there and many national campers go and get training there. I will also show some of the photographs and videographs subsequently. Bangalore is again our good center where many para athletes and weightlifters also undergo the training. So athletics and weightlifting training also goes on in Bangalore. So these are the different activities we do conduct, and we do fund the federation for various competitions. We do provide our SAI campuses to the federations for conducting national championships. In fact, we have announced that the federations, if they have to organize any activity in SAI center, it is free of cost and it is given a priority after the national camp. So we give very high priority to the any activity that is to be organized, not only by the National Sports Federation, but also by the state associations. And we are also constructing a lot of hostels. Without hostel, it will be very difficult to conduct the national championships. So in time to come, you will also be able to avail our hostel facilities. We have a very good shooting range, Karni Singh shooting range in Delhi. So large number of parachuters also do their training in our Karni Singh shooting range. So these are the spectrum of activities which I thought I must share with all of you. And I will not take much of your time, but we'll wait for some question answer session. Thank you very much. Now I'll just show you some of the visuals. So can we just go through the visuals? So these are the para athletes. I think in different places we have taken collage. Some are in Bangalore, some in KSSR shooting range, and some in Gandhinagar. I think this is a video. So this is an athlete undergoing training, some kind of fitness training he's undergoing. He's a javelin thrower. He's a medalist. He's undergoing training in Gandhinagar. He's a high jumper. So this is our Sai Center. So in our campus, we allow the para athletes to be accompanied by one more person. So that's our policy. So it's generally 1+1. Our lifting. This is our Bangalore campus. He is an athlete in Bangalore preparing for Olympics, Paralympic.
ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಕೇಶವಮೂರ್ತಿ ಅಂತ. ನಾನು ಸಾಯಿಲೆ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಇದೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಕೋಚು ಸತ್ಯನಾರಾಯಣ ಅಂತೇಳಿ. ನಮ್ಮದು ಈವೆಂಟು 1500 ಮತ್ತು 5000 ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ.
मेरा नाम विनोद कुमार है और मेरा इवेंट डिस्कस थ्रो है. मेरी कैटेगरी F52 पैरा और मेरा कोच सत्यनारायण जी है और मैं यहाँ पे बेंगलोर साई में कैंप लगा हुआ मैं यहाँ ट्रेनिंग करता हूँ और मेरा ट्रेनिंग बहुत ही अच्छा चल रहा है. और कोरोना टाइम में जो मेरे को बहुत ही ज़्यादा मुसीबतों का सामना करना पड़ा, उसका कारण ये है कि वहाँ पे मेरे पास कोई फैसिलिटी नहीं थी और मुझे घर पे ट्रेनिंग करनी पड़ रही थी. बाकी जब मेरा कैंप मेरी परफॉर्मेंस भी अच्छी हुई है और मेरे को बहुत ही अच्छा लग रहा है. मैं अपने मुकाम पर पहुंचने के लिए यहाँ पे आया था और मेरा मुकाम विद रिकॉर्ड गोल्ड मेडल लेके आया. थैंक यू.
पास में आगे जो पिछले यूज करते थे ओलंपिक की तैयारी में, तो अभी करंट तो अपना की जिसको ब्रॉन्ज मेडल पोजीशन में है. तो हम बहुत अच्छी कोशिश करेंगे कि हमारे पास टाइम पड़ा है और इसी के आप आगे तक कंटिन्यू हो गया तो बहुत अच्छा रहेगा. और मैं कोशिश करूँगा कि और अच्छा कराने की और आगे भी चीज़ों की कोशिश करूँगा. और ऐसे ही चलता रहा तो जरूर मेडल लेके आएंगे और अपने देश का नाम करेंगे. हमारा एथलीट डेफिनेटली आगे आने वाला ओलंपिक्स में पैरा ओलंपिक्स में मेडल तो इंडिया को लेके ही आएगा. लास्ट ईयर 4 मेडल आया था, इस टाइम तो हम 10 मेडल तक लेके आए.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Pradhan. Thank you so much.
So this is, you can see the visuals of the cash prize distribution by Honorable Minister. And that's a wheelchair championship, national championship, I think conducted in Punjab, and Honorable Minister had gone for the finals.
Yes. Thank you so much. I think you have touched the chord of many of us by saying that you want to treat sports as sports and not as para sports and non-para sports. I think that's a wonderful way that you have started your presentation, and this is where I think all of us would like to reach eventually, because there's a lot of feeling that there is discrimination, and if Government of India has it at the top of its agenda to bring both on par, to bring that parity between para sports and sports, then this will take a long way to go a long way for all of us, for a very meaningful sports career for many people who are there with hopes and dreams. I'm also thankful to you for having brought those visuals and the pictorial presentations to support the activities of SAI. And after hearing you about your Gandhinagar and about the centers of excellence and the fact that you're going right up to the individual players to support them with whatever it costs, and many of the facilities are being offered free of cost, and you're also supporting federations with no charge at all to use the stadia. I think this is all wonderful news for many of us. We are not aware of this, so we would like to be connected to the SAI in a more meaningful way, and we will be reaching out to you to know what's happening, and so that we can take advantage of whatever facilities that Government of India has in its collective wisdom offered to the para sports personnel. Thank you so much, Mr. Pradhan. Let me just start off with some questions very quickly. There are some which are for the respective departments, and there are some which are for both. Let me start with Sri, Shakuntala. Due to COVID, many of our players are struggling with loss of income, fully or reduction in their family income. We could arrange support for their essential needs through sponsors for a few months, which is what WBFI did. But they want to know, is there any scheme available for our players to get support to meet their essential needs? And I don't know, maybe Mr. Pradhan also has something to say on that. And I'm deliberately starting with this question because there are fundamental needs as human beings. Disability is just one part of it. So I'm starting with something that is fundamentally required for both. I would like you to have your response on this.
Yes, we had actually, even before the lockdown had started, we issued in anticipation, a lot of our visually impaired employees and persons would need to negotiate going to the office or accessing a public transport system on the basis of a feel of, touch of the surface. So the first thing we did was we sought an exemption for all employees to be attending office and to work from home. We also issued a comprehensive guideline to all the state governments to ensure that food, medicine, and shelter should be provided. And the Food Ministry actually issued a letter to all the chief secretaries saying that the National Food Security Act, they are supposed to be providing the BPL cards and the Antyodaya food ration, the quota which is to be provided for people even below the poverty line. So this has now been, I believe, monitored even by the court as to how many disabled persons who fall in the category of BPL would need to have ration cards, and there's a huge drive going on. So food, shelter and medicine cannot be denied. And in the times of COVID, this was especially so because we found that most of the people who would need food, medicine and shelter would be locked down in their homes, and governments and appropriate authorities would need to see that such facilities are provided at the doorstep. So already a comprehensive guideline has gone, and we also said that laboratories and testing laboratories and hospitals need to be provided with ramps, and a priority should be given to them whenever they are accessing a healthcare facility, because they would need an extra care and a relaxation in terms of accessing healthcare. Food under the Atmanirbhar campaign and the Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana, which irrespective of their income status, food was to be provided, and I think that has ended now. But the mandate was that we must provide food for all of them. As far as loss of jobs is concerned, we already have mentioned, and we've already sort of comprehensively also requested the state governments that their sort of quota of state government jobs cannot go beyond the threshold, below the threshold level. It can go beyond the threshold level. So many states have actually gone above 4%. I think Madhya Pradesh has got more than 6% reservation in jobs. And since skilling and loaning facilities are also provided by our empanel partners and the vocational training centers, we can also sort of, we have a skill council, but we also have requested that the state governments must have their own healthcare facilities, the quota for jobs, the reservation of higher education. We have a scholarship portal where we give scholarships to pre-matric, post-matric, top class, fellowship, and also coaching, free coaching, and overseas scholarships. We have actually spent more than 1 crore of rupees per student for scholarships for postdoctoral kind of courses, and some of the very bright students have availed and accessed those scholarships. So such scholarship sort of schemes are available. We also have the Deen Dayal Rehabilitation Scheme, where established civil society organization, whether it is in the field of visual impairment, whether it is intellectual disabilities, or whether it is hearing impairment or any other kinds of disabilities, we could partner them, wherein they can give them proper sort of schooling, education, rehabilitative care, and personnel and professionals who needed to be engaged for giving sort of such services to such people. Their sort of remuneration has also been doubled by 2.5 times. And therefore, we find that some of the NGOs are doing very well and excellent work in terms of providing comprehensive rehabilitative care from end to end in terms of their sort of daily life, and also in terms of education, in terms of creative and repetitive work. We have also got the National Handicap Finance Corporation that provides loans to such persons and such NGOs for starting self-employment sort of opportunities or trades, where they could start a small sort of startup on their own habitat, or we could engage with the corporates so that they get a job. And even for sort of jobs like data entry operators and maybe food and beverages, housekeeping, most of our Down syndrome persons are engaged by the Lemon Tree group of hotels, for housekeeping. So we have tried to see that corporates who are engaging and employing them, for them the gratuity plus insurance and many other government assistance are provided for a period of 10 years, so that the corporates need not go through the grind of paying extra money for them. So I think a lot of work has been done, but the prejudice that they would not be able to excel, they would not be able to perform, is something we all need to get together and overcome this collectively. And with a little bit of skilling and with a little bit of help and encouragement, I think all of them have proved that they can excel and they can surpass anyone. So this attitude is what is required more. And disabilities as a subject is a subject of the state government and the local self-government. So the more we get their representation, more we get them involved at the panchayat, municipal, and at the state government level, I think our policy objectives and mission, and the way we are sort of trying to do direct benefit transfer, and through sort of online methods of dispersal of funds and scholarships, we will get more and more sort of people enrolled in our portals. I must tell you that when I joined here, there were only about 600 students in the pre-matric, post-matric. Today we have more than 39,000 who have enrolled. So we would like to welcome students to enroll. The entire method has been simplified so that the access can sort of be easy and the dispersal become more transparent and more direct. So I think what we need to do is we need to only see that whether it is the state government, whether they are the schools, colleges, whether they are the legislators, media, policymakers, they all need to look at this act and see that state governments have also notified these acts. So for the state government, there are commissioners of disabilities. If there are any violations, if there are any sort of gaps which needs to be dialogued or in terms of, with the Commissioner of Disabilities, who's a quasi-judicial body, to see that they could recommend to the state government, they could pass orders that, within a stipulated time, they must provide the roster system, the recruitment rules, the selection procedure. If they have been bypassed, ignored, if they have been discriminated, all such sort of cases can be taken up. For the central government jobs, we are already identified more than 3,600 category of posts where all kinds of disabilities with the degree of disabilities, what kind of jobs would they be suitable for? And let me tell you, this exercise is a very in-depth exercise involving the DOPT and us and the experts. And I find that most of the disabled persons, whether he's a low vision, whether he's one arm, whether he's one leg, whether he's, dyslexia, whether he's cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, they qualify for all the jobs. And, certain concessions and relaxations in terms of an extra time, in terms of a scribe, in terms of, technology, and in terms of having attendance, escorts. We have had a very successful cultural show at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and the Rashtrapati ji sort of wanted the show to be repeated in the Parliament and Annexe, and he wanted the Honourable Council of the Ministers, Prime Minister, Speaker, Vice President, and the members of Parliament to see the program so that the legislators also get sensitized. Now we have a regional chapter of the cultural program. We have had one in Chennai. We are having one now in the Northeast. So I think a lot of activities in terms of their inclusion in sports, culture, and their ability needs to be, the prejudices and, the fear that we have that they won't be able to excel is something which we need to overcome from the civil society and from the community, and even from the parents who lose confidence, would need to be overcome in the years to come. Otherwise, the Act and the provisions of the Act, the commitment of the Act cannot be sort of questioned. I think it's one of the most noble, most instrumental, and most forward-looking, inclusive in terms of how to include, persons with disabilities so that they don't get left behind. It's been very sort of well enunciated and very well articulated in this Act. One couldn't have done a better job. I think thanks to the Honourable Prime Minister and the Parliament that this Act is going to set a historic milestone in the years to come, when visibility in terms of their inclusion and accessibility in terms of universal accessibility and infrastructure would be translated into reality. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You did mention that disability is a state subject, and so is sports, I think. So we are on the same platform with respect to both. So the question for Mr. Pradhan is, different state governments follow different guidelines with regard to sports as is it in the state list, being the state list. A few states are only providing equal recognition to Paralympic sports persons. Would it be possible for SAI to bring in uniform guidelines to provide equal opportunities and recognition to para sports? I think you start with that, if you can just spell out some of those components.
Ma'am, you have already answered the question that sports is a state subject. And even otherwise, if you look at the growth, like for example, in Haryana, the government is very proactive, and a lot of cash prize are awarded. Now just think of the situation where before Haryana announced the cash prize, if government of India would have started a consultation with all the states, probably even today Haryana wouldn't have been able to announce those cash prizes for the athletes and para athletes. So I think it's a development process, and I think there are two very senior IAS officers already sitting here. So you know 1,000 times more than what I know, because you have experienced right from block and villages to the national level. So it's a very the process. When one state does it, the another also is tempted to do it. There is a pressure on the state. So my sense is, it is for the federations and the other stakeholders to build the pressures on the states which are not doing things which good states are doing. That's how I think we should build the pressures on the states. And I have seen myself many chief ministers, many bureaucrats also, when they are sensitized about what is happening in other states, they do like to take the best steps taken by any state. For example, when I was in Gujarat, and when we had to announce the cash prize, when I met the chief minister, so chief minister said that I want to have the best policy in the country. So we just presented a Haryana policy, and then it was very easy for us to get an approval from the finance ministry of the finance department of the government, state government. Otherwise, to announce a cash prize of say 2 crore or 3 crore rupees for an Olympic medal in a state government is extremely difficult. So that is how I think the development would take place. That is my sense.
Yeah, seeing is believing and believing is modeling. So we would like to take a copy of the Haryana model and see if, as you said, we act as pressure groups to make state governments evolve guidelines which have homogeneity within the framework of heterogeneity of all the states.
And ma'am, there would be many state governments who would have done a lot of good things which even central government has not done it. So probably central government may also like to replicate once we know that one particular state has done wonderful things in say para sports or some other area of sports development. So that's how I think things happen.
So it's more amenable to bottom up than top down approach in some
consultation has got its own issues, and as you know, if there is no mandate, it's very difficult to bring all the states on board. It's not a very priority for all the states.
Yes. So the next question for both of you is what is the interdepartmental coordination mechanism available, especially in regard to budgetary provisions for sports disabilities between the departments, and also center and state, keeping in view the difficulties in facing and accessing this support? And the related question is, how can a person with disability collaborate with the Department of Empowerment or Disabled? So we're looking at both ministries coming together, which is what we are having right now. How do we come together? Because there are a lot of difficulties people are facing approaching, between one. There are a lot of slip between the cup and the lip, I'm sure. How do we do this? Is there a mechanism that you have?
I want to just inform, the participants here that the Department for Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities was established in 2012. When you look at the budget allocations, we have actually made a quantum jump, and we have almost doubled, trebled, and starting from a mere 300 crore, we are now spending about more than 1,300 crores. But often I find that, when we are doing something which is a novelty in terms of an infrastructure, when we sit together and when we design the DPR and when we talk about the management and governance, we always have a joint secretary sports from the sports ministry. When we decide about inclusive education, we always have the NCRT and the joint secretary elementary education on board. And even in the Rehabilitation Council of India, we have people from the NCT, from the AICT, we have from UGC. So it's not as if we are working in isolation or in a disjunct manner. But as far as budgetary support is concerned, that is an internal exercise of every department. And I'm sure the schemes, whether it's centrally sponsored or whether it is centrally assisted schemes, which is in a federal setup, both the state and center would do. But in our department, it's 100% centrally sponsored schemes. So we have to conceive, we have to sort of design, we have to sort of go to the cabinet, or we have to go to the parliament, and we have to make the budget provision, and we have to get it implemented either through our national institutes or through the state government. So as far as interdepartmental coordination is concerned, we have the committee of secretaries where the cabinet secretary chairs a meeting on issues of standardization in accessible and, whether it's ICT, whether it is transport, whether it is airports. You see a lot of accessibility components are visible now in the airports. You also see in the railway stations. So all these are through the committee of secretaries and interdepartmental sort of mechanisms that have been sort of prescribed in the transaction of business rules. And I don't think the government of India works, in isolation. It works in concert, and there is an interdepartmental consultation for cabinet notes and also for draft bills. So I don't think we falter on that. What perhaps is required is a little more awareness, a little more sort of campaigns in terms of the guidelines, and to put more sort of flesh and blood into the whole framework of implementation machinery at the state and at the grassroots level. Thank you.
Implementation coordination is very critical. Yes, Mr. Pradhan.
Has already answered, and coordination is always two ways, so she has already taken up all the points.
Okay, if we have problems, we'll come to you and we'll take your help for implementation, because this is a perspective that's coming from the ground. I thought they would like to share it with you. The next question is, does SAI have any plans to involve federations to achieve ensure physical education graduates, postgraduates coming out of college, university with the required knowledge on Paralympic sports, also along with Olympic sports, and if the respective federations have any plans to achieve, your plans for the federation to achieve the above. For example, WBFI organized courses for referees, coaches, classifiers with the support of International Federation, that's IWBF. In case SAI requests, our WBFI trained coaches can take a few sessions for physical education standards. Is that something that you would like to consider?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, when I was given this idea, to be very honest, we had not thought over it earlier. And yes, we do fund the federations to carry out all these activities, that coach education, classifiers and all. But we do run many programs, including physical education program in our LNCPE. Trivandrum, we have a physical education college. We have a NIS diploma in Patiala. That's the only or considered the best in terms of sports coaching. I think we need to induct, add the curriculum as far as the para athletes and their problems, how to tackle. So we'll certainly request you to help us to conceptualize the program, and we'll try to induct all these inputs in all our existing programs.
We are very ready to help. We have wonderful coaches here and very good referees and classifiers. I've had interaction with them, and they are all, way ahead in terms of their advanced thinking. So any progressive step that you would like us to be part of, we are very happy to participate. Any event, whenever it's organized, Ms. Shakuntala, the biggest challenge is accessible accommodation and transport. What steps are being taken? Now, you have mentioned about the Gwalior, but what is it that is what's happening around the country? Even now, sports games are being done, the events are being carried out, but there's a very big issue. There's not even 100 people can get proper accessible transportation and accommodation whenever we organize these national camps. Of course, this is a low period in terms of COVID, but then this is a time that we need to think about these issues, and that's why this question has come up. I think if you can respond to this.
In 2015, even before the legislation was in place, where sections 40 to 46 clearly mandates accessibility in buildings, existing buildings, in new buildings, and even sort of restrains local authorities to issue any completion certificates of buildings which are new, which are of public importance in terms of, the unfettered accessibility that needs to be provided. So let's look at public buildings, not in the terms of certain buildings could be restricted buildings. So public buildings could be a sports stadium. Public buildings could also be government buildings. Public buildings could also be hospitals, whether that be in the private or private-public sector, as the case may be. So as I had already mentioned to you about these sections, I would say that if there is a lack of accessibility, there is a mechanism where the Commissioner Disabilities of the state government can take up such cases suo moto with the local authorities or with the with the state government or with the private sort of building owners, as the case may be. Now we have already funded some of the selected buildings, 50 sort of buildings, of 25 to 50 buildings in 50 important cities. And in the second phase, we are expecting that state governments will do 50% of their buildings as mandated under the Act, so that these buildings, which are generic and sort of public sort of importance from the accessibility point of view, are also included in the list of buildings. We have mentioned about railways, we have mentioned about airports, we have mentioned about public transport systems. Now the Ministry of Road Transport Highways has already brought out sort of standards, and those standards, if they are not implementable, how to look at issuing instructions or to incorporate in their Motor Vehicles Act or the public terminals, public buses, stations, public sort of interstate bus terminals or bus stops and bus terminals, in terms of accessibility, in terms of not only the public sort of transport or the public carrier, but the station, the transport station, the transport sort of public bus stops and public terminals, railway stations, airports, and even seaports, and even sort of waterways where there are where people would need to sort of access such public transport systems, because it would be both the waterways, airways, and also land and road. So one needs to see that these provisions cannot be implemented by the central government alone. For the central government organizations, we would need to do it ourselves. We have already done more than sort of 1,000 buildings within the central government. The CPWD have retrofitted and make the buildings accessible. We are already building sports stadiums that are going to be accessible. We have already sort of harmonized building guidelines have been issued to all ministries, to all state governments, so that they adopt them as building bylaws. We have already sort of sat with the Ministry of Road Transport Highways. They have also sort of seen to it that the domain of public transport, roadways, needs to be sort of monitored by them. Railways, we are already building standards with railways. In the interregnum, they have also made certain accessible sort of ramps and accessible online book ticketing, and the public address system, and inter-platform transfer through trolleys, and helplines, wheelchairs have been provided. In the meanwhile, they have already upgraded 709 sort of stations, railway stations. They have several categories of A, B, and C. So already sort of 709 railway stations have been upgraded, and all international domestic airports have been sort of upgraded in terms of accessibility. There are accessible toilets, there are lifts, there are sort of wheelchair facilities, tactile flooring, online booking systems, even for special children, where there could be a dedicated sort of counters, ensuring that proper sort of escorts and attendants can accompany, and the seating should be within the family in the aircraft, so that they could sit together. So a child who's autistic, who would need help, need not be sort of distanced from the accompanying parents and adults. All very detailed guidelines have been worked out. Now, the state government buildings, state government public transport systems, we've had several discussions, and we are also trying to now launch something called the Sugamya Bharat application, which can, anybody can upload a picture of an inaccessible, say, a bank building or an inaccessible bus stop. And we would like to see that in the Jan Bhagidari system, we send it to the nodal officers be that as it may, the collector in the ministry, not someone, someone who's not below the rank of junior joint secretary, and also to see that escalating the complaint and ensuring that within 15 days, if it is not addressed, we should be able to get a prompt sort of, response system of redressal. So all these have been done to make it more participative and not to sort of just see that, timelines and legal obligations will be implemented. We are trying to see that, the noise is made and people must sort of, upscale and see that the responses must be prompt. And these, we have also done a detailed exercise that these are not capital intensive corrections which need to be made. These are very sort of easy to implement in terms of costs. And it's just that, somebody has not been sensitized till somebody actually faces a challenge like this. So we have also tried to see that they don't get lost in the the millions of buildings. We've tried to see that a generic category of buildings of public sort of importance, which needs to be accessed in an unfettered manner, are actually categorized in terms of their utility and accessibility for disabled persons. As I had mentioned, they could be hospitals, they could be universities, they could be colleges, they could be schools, and even the education, sort of new education policy has seen to it that they provide accessible classrooms. They also have seen to it that sign language interpreters and modes of expressions, and for different disabilities what kind of curriculum would be required, have all been sort of taken into account. And with civil society, parental, NGOs, such organizations, such persons we have in our governing bodies, such persons who are there, who are guiding us in our national institutes and our regional institutes, to ensure that the input comes from the person who's himself sort of can explain and can bring out the difficulties that they have and the challenges that they face. So empathy in terms of understanding, promptness in terms of response, and standardization in terms of understanding what we need to do in terms of retrofitting or in terms of building new concepts of architectural philosophy have all been done. Now we only need to see that without passing the buck to the other person, we need to do it, and it's very doable. It's very implementable. It's not rocket science. We need to get our act together, and if we look around, we'll know what are the corrections which need to be done. And we have already extended the date to December 2022, because within 5 years we were supposed to make buildings accessible. Within 2 years we were supposed to make services accessible. We have already made all the government websites accessible now, even private websites, whether it is for airline ticket booking or for cinema halls or for finding out about information about public service. All those public-private websites also need to be made accessible. So if you look at Rule 15.1 and 15.2 of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, it clearly mandates that the domain ministry and the regulator will come out with the standards and will also ensure the monitoring, implementation, and timelines and legal obligations are met as it is mandated. So all sensitization through the Committee of Secretaries, all sensitization through writing of letters, all sensitization through interministerial discussions have already been done. And I think we need to now take it forward at the state and the grassroots level. Thank you.
Taking cue from your response, I think we have not, I must confess that we have not as yet tapped the potential of the regulator called the Disability Commissioner, and also the Sugam Bharat scheme, where you can post your grievance redressed.
We are yet to launch it, ma'am. We are launching it, I think, in the first week of February, because we had to get all, the application and the service provider to sort of, design the concept and all that. So now it's ready for launch. But we have the MIS where we are already receiving photographs of where the accessible features have been built in those select audited buildings by disabled persons themselves in such organizations?
In fact, we have one ready to be posted, and which is in Chennai. We're having a problem, and I want to link this question. And
this is a state building or a central government building?
No, let me. That's why I'm coming to the point. The point is that it was a government, and it's a sports related, not it applies to our wheelchair basketball players. The stadium, which was a government stadium, has now been taken over by a private party, and they don't have a ramp. It's a huge stadium, and they don't have a ramp. And the wheelchairs that were distributed to the players have been kept in a place where it got completely destroyed during the COVID. Now it requires enormous physical support in order to be able to transport these wheelchairs outside. And we have been, I understand the players. I've just taken over and I've just heard about it, briefed about it. And despite the fact that they have brought it to the notice of the owners, essentially private sector, they have not been able to do the ramp. Otherwise they could, and these wheelchairs are actually rotting there. So these are all given, to the players, and they should be able to use it. So we would either have to approach the Disability Commissioner, or we'll send a photo, and if this Sugam Bharat is in the MIS, if this picture is there, we would like to have a ramp constructed within a short time frame.
I think you should access your local commissioner first, because we give more priority to our central government buildings, because as chief commissioner, because my domain is only the central government organizations. But of course, I could also take suo motu notice. But when you have a commissioner there in place who can actually coordinate with the state government better, because he's a local person and he's a quasi.
The Disability Commissioner.
You have a Disability Commissioner in Tamil Nadu, and I think he should be Can
I move on to the next? This next question is: would it be possible for SAI to include a session about Paralympic sports in their training programs for the sports officials from the states? And we feel that this will give them more clarity about such sports. Mr. Pradhan.
We can definitely collaborate with the PCI and other federations to make a good content, and under Khelo India, we'll roll out to the various state governments and sensitize them.
Okay, thank you so much. When our teams went to participate in the Paralympics in Thailand, there was a comparative study of the facilities that WBFI carried out, and we still have the report. And we found in almost all those countries, government is supporting them to keep entire team at one place and providing training programs for them for longer periods. So this is one of the, I know you've answered this question. I just wanted to flag this for you, just to keep in mind. I want to know the other question, the important question that has come up is there any scheme that is available for them to apply for financial support to buy sports wheelchairs? And are there steps to encourage manufacturing of sports wheelchair and other equipments in India itself? And these are two linked questions that have come up.
So, Madam, to answer the first question, yes, under National Sports Development Fund, also an application can be made, and also under Khelo India, there is a provision to provide funds to the Federation, National Sports Federation, to procure the equipments.
Okay. But manufacturing as yet is not there as yet?
Manufacturing, we'll have to check with the Commerce Ministry also as to whether there are the specific provisions for sports. Okay. As far as our ministry is concerned, I have not seen any notification for incentive structure so far.
All right. Ms. Shakuntala, to create more awareness about this particular sport, wheelchair basketball, requires high performance sports wheelchairs, and to have idea about high level performance of other countries' sports due to continuous practice with high performance customized sports wheelchairs and under experienced coaches. So we tried a lot to bid for the hosting under 25 women's wheelchair basketball championship, as very few teams were participating. The cost of hosting also, the economies of scale would have meant that the cost of hosting would have been less also, but we could not bid for it due to, in the inadequacy of some support. So in such a situation, how can we approach you, and what is it that you can do for such requirements, to meet such requirements?
To sort of apprise you about the assistive devices that we provide to all the disabled persons, irrespective, of whether he's in a rural area or in an urban area. But basically, we need to see that their income per month should not exceed 15,000 in terms of income level, and the cost of the assistive devices should not exceed 10,000 rupees. But we do give motorized tricycles, which are highly sort of costly in terms of, I think it's about 39,000. But we do see that many members of parliament, through their MP lad fund, they leverage funding of the additional amount that is required. But in terms of providing wheelchairs to Divyang persons or assistive devices, whether it is behind the ear kit or a cane chair or a smartphone, or it cannot exceed beyond 10,000 rupees. So the reason why we cannot go for high-end equipments unless it is to do with his mobility, which is the basic need. So I would not be able to answer your question for high-end sports equipment. But since our sports centers are coming up, the governance and the policy can in future probably factor in terms of whether that could fit in the revenue and capital component of the budget of such centers.
The last question, Shakuntala and Mr. Pradhan, I hope you're there still. This is there an audit of the stadia, the sports stadia, to see that it is disabled friendly? Is there any system of carrying out an audit of such institutions to ensure that infrastructure the requirements of disabled persons? Because many of the stadia do not have. Sometimes they may be suffering from lack of resources. Especially they don't consider themselves answerable or accountable. How do we ensure more accountability for these stadia becoming disabled friendly?
As I had mentioned to you, ma'am, we had audited 25 to 50 buildings in 50 cities, which we funded. But now state governments are supposed to do at least 50% of their buildings. Now, in priority, if it's a health or a stadia or a bank, I think local commissioners, local auditors need to be taken on board, and they could be persons with disabilities, and they could see that such buildings are given priority. Now, depending on the funding and resources of the state government, buildings which are within the jurisdiction of the state government, buildings which are within the jurisdiction of the local authorities, whether it is the municipal corporations or the panchayats or the zilla parishads, they would have to take them up. But for central government buildings, we have already ensured that, since we are dedicating special sports, accessible and adapted games, and state of the art in all the 5 zones, we hope that it would at least serve the purpose of the surrounding states and surrounding districts, so that each person who wishes to be trained and participate in such sports activities will access those zonal sports centers.
Is there a role for SAI in this audit, Mr. Pradhan?
Ma'am, as you are aware, if the state government conducts or they construct any infrastructure, we definitely do not have any role to do the audit. But under Khelo India, there is a provision to fund the state government to make any stadia disabled friendly. So, for example, the instance that you were mentioning about Chennai, if the state government gives us a proposal under Khelo India for funding it to make it disabled friendly, then under Khelo India, it can certainly be done.
Can be done.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I think we've had a battery of questions, considering that everybody, has been sort of just getting exposure to you, and over a long period of time, not having faced the government. These questions have come up in big numbers. We're so happy that both of you could take all our questions and spend more than 1.5 hours time, whereas we slotted only for 1 hour. And it shows the the magnitude of your commitment, dedication, and magnanimity to have taken all these questions in great spirit, in positive spirit, in progressive spirit. And we look forward. We've got some clues from you as to how to make inroads into your ministry for taking your assistance. And I'll be leading from the forefront. So we're very happy to have had both of you on this occasion. And thank you so much on my personal behalf and on behalf of the entire WBFI fraternity from India and abroad. I request Mr. Lee, to Secretary General, to give you a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Respected Madam Shakuntala, respected Sir, Mr. Sandip, and respected Madam Bhamati, we just want to thank you all for your time. Thank you once again for taking your time on your busy schedule. And on behalf of WBFI, we are really honored to have you both talk to us. And a special thanks to Bhamati ma'am for organizing this and for helping us understand in depth of how the government is working towards people with disability. I also would like to thank the technical team for arranging everything and for helping us run this program smoothly. So once again, thanks to both our dignitaries for honoring us with your presence and your insightful.
I would be falling short if I did not mention Mr. Panda and Mr. Manikant and Harish and Akash, who have been doing the coordination over the last 3-4 days. There were a lot of hitches, but they overcame all that. And it's really been a pleasure to be with you today, and also having worked with your officers in your respective ministries. And we found a lot of wonderful spirit in them that we can handhold and take forward the mission and vision of WBFI. Thank you very much and good night. Thank you.